Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video now the latest from the live radar. And for the latest weather warnings, we still have impacts from Storm Amy, which is now slowly clearing out into the North Sea, but still got widespread yellow warnings up and down the country. So we'll continue to see 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts into this evening, and still an amber warning issued for parts of northern Scotland, as here gusts still exceeding 70, 80 miles per hour. Not seeing the 90 or 100 mile per hour gusts we had yesterday, but still very strong nonetheless. Still got quite a few blustery showers around, and again we'll look at that in more detail on the latest UKV. The positives though is it's looking like it's going to settle down a little bit in the next few days. Yes, some rain, maybe some further bands of persistent rain moving through, but generally speaking we are going to see high pressure starting to make a return, so turning from very stormy back to something a little bit more settled. As we progress into the longer term, perhaps even more changes starting to appear. We have been talking about high pressure being more of an influence as we head into the middle portion of the month, transitioning perhaps slightly further westwards in the last couple of days. And today we've actually got some real big northern blocking on some of the runs. Now it is still probably about 3 or 4 weeks too early to see anything particularly cold. We're kind of looking at early to mid-November for that, but definitely possibility of seeing maybe some frosts and some chillier days with perhaps northerly or northeasterly winds, perhaps even seeing the upper air temperatures getting close to the -5 isotherm. We did have a couple of cooler blasts earlier in September, but being now into October, they could be a little bit more potent, and definitely that looks like more favoured scenario within the operational runs today. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see the main weather fronts associated with Storm Amy are well to our east now, heading into Scandinavia, into Central and Southern Europe. The cold front there, that squall feature, that moved through parts of England last night, now is heading across parts of Germany down towards the Alps. The main weather fronts now with Storm Amy are many, many hundreds of miles away. But what we're left with is still remnants of the occluded front up towards the centre of the system, which is now out in the North Sea, and of course an array of showers along the boundaries within this low pressure system. Along the isobars, still seeing some of these blustery showers moving through, looking pretty heavy and maybe thundery further northwards, but for most, a lot of the rain now has cleared. For northern Scotland, as I said though, still seeing some impacts from that occluded front towards the centre of the low. Still lots of heavy rain. Again, this is exacerbated by the very strong winds, which are now more exclusive across the far north of Scotland, easing away during this evening. But elsewhere, still seeing 40, 50, 60 mile per hour gusts. But parts of England and Wales, the gusts are actually stronger today than yesterday when the main sort of centre of Storm Amy moved through. So another very blustery day, but it should be settling down overnight Saturday into Sunday. Now, if you do put on the temperatures, it is pretty chilly out there. You see a lot more blues, and that is because that cold front that swept through last night brought the upper air temperatures from around 14 or 15 degrees at 850 HPA down closer towards the low single digits. So a big cold front moving through, and it has meant that it's a lot cooler out there today. Not cold, the air mass isn't that cold for the time of year. It's actually only hovering around average. It's the air mass we saw previously as Storm Amy approached, and with behind the warm front, that was pretty abnormal. But the air mass we've got now is more of a typical Atlantic airflow. So yeah, a fresher feel out there, but still nothing too crazy. If you put on the latest wind speeds, again, these are the wind speeds, not wind gusts, but you can see widely still kind of 30, 40, 50 mile per hour with gusts a little bit higher. Still a few purpley areas up there towards the far north of Scotland. Those were a lot more widespread across western Scotland last night as we did our video. So definitely the strongest winds easing, but you can still see it is widely pretty blustery indeed as we do progress during the rest of Saturday. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, we've got widespread weather warnings still issued. We've got a widespread yellow wind warning for much of England and Wales here, expiring at 7 p.m. A wind warning further northwards that expires at midnight tonight. A wind warning for Northern Ireland that expires at midnight. And then an amber warning for rain still across parts of, for wind still across parts of northern Scotland that expires at 9 p.m. So as I'm recording this, only about 6 to 9 hours left of warning-worthy winds, but still could see some more impacts, but it should slowly ease off as we progress towards Sunday. For the sample warning, still looking at 60 to 70, maybe 80 to 85, but we should be done with those 90 or 100 mile per hour gusts. And you can see still medium impact and pretty high likelihood there. We still do have a yellow warning for wind here for parts of Scotland for the first 12 hours of Sunday. But again, we are looking at the sort of back edge of the system clearing through. It's precautionary, so the winds will still be relatively strong, and there is still the risk of a few very strong gusts. That's why this warning is enforced. But for most, things should be easing off. Now, if we go over to net weather, we can see the current maximum wind gusts. You can see pretty widely 50 up towards around 65 miles per hour. It's pretty much in line with expected. Again, this doesn't portray every weather station. And remember, weather stations are, are around the country, and again, not always proportionally distributed. So we've got a lot across England and Wales, perhaps less so in those rural areas across northern and western Scotland, impacting by the most strong winds. You can see Cairnwell there, 99 miles per hour. That is over the higher ground in Scotland, so not too unexpected. It is very abnormal compared to the rest of the wind gusts, so perhaps it is an error there, but I wouldn't be surprised to have seen that. Of course, if we had seen the wind gusts overnight last night, it would have been even stronger. Again, this does reset at midnight. Any gusts that came at 10, 11 p.m. when the winds were still at their peak across western Scotland won't be in this data here. So that's why we're only seeing kind of 50 to 65 here. Again, I said the most rural areas that see the 70 to 80 is probably not being picked up here, but this gives us a general gist of the widespread sort of winds at the moment. You can see even London City Airport here, so further down south, even seeing 50 plus miles per hour gusts. So pretty blustery again today, but the main impacts are now clearing away. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see some heavier rain earlier this morning, clearing through with Storm Amy, and progressively through this evening, it does turn drier and more settled. Into Sunday, still some thicker clouds, still the odd shower, but nothing too bad, and again a bit of persistent rain there Sunday night into Monday. As we progress during Monday afternoon, again some showers in the far north and west, but for most not really being too impactful, and again a few further showers during Tuesday and Wednesday, but generally speaking, things slowly settling down, slowly looking a little bit more positive, looking better. And as I said, high pressure looks like it could really influence that middle third to October. But as I said, from most recent runs, could turn things both drier, but also pretty cold indeed. Now, if you look at the wind gusts at the moment, still seeing those 60, 70, maybe even 80 mile per hour gusts across the far north of Scotland over the next few hours. But it should clear away as we head into Sunday, and then as we progress into Sunday afternoon, still maybe 40 or 50 mile per hour gusts in a few isolated areas across Scotland, but most the gusts really easing during the day. Some stronger gusts could arrive for Monday with more lower pressure moving in, but they do degrade away quite significantly as they push inland. And then for the rest of Tuesday and Wednesday, look at that. It's looking pretty settled indeed, with many areas wind gusts not even above 10 miles per hour. So going from very stormy down to a little bit more of a settled pattern. It is a little bit abnormal, seeing just one very severe storm system and then it easing off. Normally in these stormy spells, we see perhaps a 5 to 7 days worth of storm systems. We've seen it before. We've had kind of 3 named storms in the space of 6 or 7 days. In this case, it's one really severe low. We did see some unsettled conditions, maybe I think it was Thursday night before Storm Amy arrived, a sort of preliminary band of precipitation and wind. But yeah, it's been kind of 48 to 72 hours of stormy conditions, and yeah, pretty much coming to nothing in the next couple of days, which, as I said, is actually a good thing. We are heading towards something a little bit more settled. Now, if you look at the temperatures, you can see it is pretty cool in places this afternoon with that cold air moving in, still some showers, and of course the wind on top of that. Single digits in some spots, the best areas 13 or 14. Into Sunday, although the air masses don't change too much, slightly higher just because of less cloud, less rain and wind. Into Monday, similar story, but already starting to see the temperatures rising a bit with that southwesterly flow returning, 18 to maybe even 20 degrees, and similar conditions there on Tuesday, a couple of degrees lower, but still up towards those upper teens. Wednesday, still maybe 17, 18 in the far southeast, and that could be the recipe for the rest of next working week. As I said, the following days, as we head towards next weekend, that's where the high pressure could migrate further northwards and westwards and unlock initially a bit of a northerly or easterly flow, and it could allow some actual proper cold air masses to mix in, as we'll see from the longer range charts now. So do start on the latest GFS, you can see Storm Amy clearing through to the east at the moment. High pressure builds in, you can see it's a southwesterly flow, that's why it's mild as we head into next week. High pressure hangs around, but look at this, next weekend it shifts northwards and westwards. Now if we were in kind of the second half of November or into December, we would be looking at this with real intrigue, as this could unlock the door to some early season wintry conditions. But being still middle of October, as I said, we're about 3 or 4 weeks too early to see anything that could cause issues. Here though, just a far-fetched northerly flow, and it turns pretty cold indeed. The upper air temperatures dropping below freezing, maybe even the -5 isotherm pushing in. Eventually it does collapse a little bit, but we reoccur with that northerly or northeasterly flow, and most likely we'll keep it pretty cold at the surface. Lots of blues there, especially in towards that middle third of the month. And the most notable thing is the potential equivalent temperature. This shows you the kind of air mass that we've got throughout the atmosphere, not just the raw temperature deviation that we've got at 850 HPA. This shows that sort of air mass, because of course we sometimes see this with higher pressure systems, where sometimes it's a warm high or sometimes it's a cool high, and the upper air temperatures are not always in line with what we see at the surface. And that is because of temperature inversions and things like that. So it's important to look at the potential equivalent temperature here, and you can see that it is a cold air mass moving through. It's not just a little bit chilly, it is a proper Arctic air mass. It's just early on in the season that it's not going to be, too bad at all. You can see more reinforcements of cold air trying to push in progressively into the latter portion of October, but nothing too direct. So again, probably won't be that cold, but chilly nonetheless. If we do just go back and have a look at what it would do at the surface, you can see here the upper air temperatures dropping down close to freezing or below freezing here. And again, if we look at the 2 meter temperatures, you can see by day, look at that, struggling around the mid to high single digits, and overnight dropping down to the low single digits. So more like average December temperatures here than average mid-October temperatures. So again, it won't produce anything ridiculous, but it definitely will snap us into the feeling of autumn and winter, gone from the days of high teens or low 20s pretty much every day that we do have over the summer. This, is a real cool spell that could arrive. As I said, not all runs showing it, but definitely been a shift in the past few days towards more of a cooler high pressure system than a milder high pressure system, and it is backed up by other runs today. Now the GM is very similar over the next week or so, with high pressure building in. It does migrate westwards progressively next weekend and does allow a northerly flow to move in. It's not a direct northerly though, it's not a particularly clear cut northerly. You can see the isobars aren't coming directly from the Arctic, but kind of skirting around this high from Greenland. So it is chilly, there is cool air, you can see the temperature deviation blues do move in with the warmth heading up towards Greenland, kind of the reversal, seeing a southerly wind here. So it is chillier, but perhaps not quite as clear cut as the GFS. And again, overnight temperatures down towards freezing, and daytime here around 10 or 12 degrees, but would likely be cooler in the subsequent days. So not exactly the same from the GM, but very similar with that high pressure further westwards and further northwards, allowing more northerly flows to move in and giving us a pretty chilly middle portion of October. And finally, if we compare to the ECMWF, again, we see low pressure, Storm Amy clearing away, high pressure being in control, and then again, longer range, that high heads towards Greenland. Not really seeing a direct northerly here, but we've got all of the kind of ingredients for seeing a colder northerly just in this scenario because of the positioning of the high just to our north, not as far westwards with this little trough towards southern Greenland. It means more of an easterly flow with some milder air trying to mix in than this very cold air that's just to our north. It could move in the subsequent days and weeks, but in this run it is chilly, it's a cool direction, but it's nothing too remarkable, not quite got the sort of cold air masses in place to see anything that's remarkable. Regardless though, if we look at the surface, it's still not particularly mild. Temperatures by day low teens, it's just by night probably won't drop away too much because the air masses are that much warmer. So if we do look at the ensembles, just to finish the video, this is cool at the moment, it's trending above average once again in the next couple of days as the southwesterly returns, and then we get back towards average as we progress during next week. You can see longer term, naturally the upper air temperature is dipping as we progress further into autumn, but then there are some notable runs, like the operational run, that are going a good 5 to maybe even 10 degrees below average, closer to kind of Arctic and wintertime air masses, below freezing at 850 HPA. There are quite a few runs there. It's not a complete overwhelming within the ensembles here, but definitely more of a shift than yesterday, which was more of a shift than the day before. It's trending in that direction. Regardless of the upper air temperatures, though, the big notable thing is look at the precipitation. That's almost unheard of during mid of October, where we've got very little precipitation at all. No rain here from around the 6th to the 16th. Again, that's pretty decent. We're heading into Halloween period, towards bonfire night, so I think people would appreciate it remaining dry, but just how these things go, it'll probably be very dry in the lead up, and then as soon as we get to Halloween and to bonfire night, we'll probably get towards stormy conditions or something that wouldn't be particularly great. So it'd be pretty typical if that did happen, a really dry middle portion to October, and then it's horrific in the final week. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely the middle portion of October here does look pretty decent indeed. Sea level pressure rising quite considerably, looking higher pressure for the foreseeable future. And again, the big notable thing is if we look at the dew points, you can see the ones that produce those Arctic air masses, very cold, are these ones towards the end, getting towards the low single digits, if not towards freezing. The ones around the 8 to 10 degree mark, those are Atlantic air masses, down towards low single digits. Those are the Arctic or at least European air masses moving in where it's drier and cooler. And there are again quite a few there, but it's not overwhelming yet. And that is the big thing we need to watch out for in the next few days. And to finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, broadly very similar, big rise in upper temperatures the next couple of days as warmer southwesterly winds return, then back towards average, and then a slow downwards trend in line with the 1991 2020 mean, but definitely again some of those runs longer term looking more and more cool, below average there, definitely dipping a little bit towards that middle portion of October. So definitely some hints of seeing something drier, definitely drier, and potentially colder there progressively into October. If we saw something like the GFS, then it could be pretty notable. Frosts could be definitely quite widespread in that scenario, and it could feel really chilly there for the middle of the month. Again, things are very much subject to change, but those are the latest trends. It is pretty weird us talking about this just as we got very unsettled, stormy conditions outside right now. It's pretty abnormal for us to be talking about a very settled spell of weather coming up, but that's exactly what we're seeing from the one extreme to the other. Really, really weird conditions at the moment, and there'll be some very interesting forecasting if this sort of up and down pattern continues, especially as we head into winter. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you stay safe out there over the next few hours as Storm Amy clears, and I'll see you again for another video soon.